Hair, Love, Radio.
You're listening to Hair Love Radio, where we get into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make your dreams a reality, start unlocking your potential, and live your best life, helping hairstylists, creatives, and girl bosses spread their awesome and light like confetti. You were made for awesome.
Hair, Love.
Hi, welcome back to Hair Love Radio. I'm your host, Elizabeth Faye. Today, we are bringing you a really fun episode. Today is all about 5 things I wish I knew before I went into business with my significant other or your lover. And I am here with the most special guest we've ever had on the podcast, the wonderful, the talented, the sexy, and the amazing Derek Solberg.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
I can't believe we haven't had you on the podcast yet, babe.
I know. It's been a while. But
How fun has this been to do a podcast?
It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad to be here and actually be speaking to you all today.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Derek is my lover, and he's my business partner, and he's the man in my life, and he's also the man behind the scenes. He is a videographer by trade. He went to school for graphic design, and he can do audio. He cooks amazing. He keeps me sane. And he's like literally the dad of the Hair Love tribe besides my actual dad, who needs to be on the podcast.
Yes, we need to get him on here.
We have to get Papa Jeff on. So if you haven't been to Hair Love Retreat, my dad is a big inspiration behind my business. You should go back to episode 1 and hear a little bit about that. But he is our hike guide. He teaches our yoga. And he's like camp dad. He's great.
Just an all-around great guy. He's an awesome human, and everyone needs to meet him.
Yeah, Papa Jeff's wonderful. Well, babe, so are you excited to talk about the nitty-gritty of what it's really like to work together?
Let's get into it.
Okay, but before we do that, I'm making you do a hot seat.
Oh, boy.
You're in the hot seat. This is the hot seat. The seat is really hot.
Okay. All right. First hot seat request. Will you please tell people what you sound like when you check the mic before we podcast?
Check, check. 1, 2. Check, 1, 2.
But you do it like sharper than that. You're like, check, check, check.
Check, check. 1. Huh.
Yeah, that's it's so funny. Okay. Next hot seat question. What is the hardest part about dating me?
The hardest part about dating you. Ooh, that's a good one.
You're like, shit, I have a book of them.
No. What is the hardest part about dating you?
I'm glad it's like not on the tip of your tongue, though.
No. For the most part, it's good. It's easy. It's not... there's always hard things about every relationship, but I guess the hardest part about dating you for me personally sometimes is you can be a very take charge type of personality, and sometimes that can transfer over into other things, which makes it difficult.
No, I'm not bossy. No one would ever think I like taking charge.
So which is great most of the time, but sometimes when we're talking about something that doesn't need to be taken charge of, and you're like, just jump in there and be like, oh no, this is the way it's gonna do. I'm like, hey, I got some say here too. Let's take turns.
You have to like manhandle me.
Yeah.
All right. What are a few quirks about you that other people would find interesting to know?
All right. Well, I guess something that probably not many people know about me, but I think is pretty interesting and I love, which is super nerdy, but I have bees. I have a beehive and I have a backyard beehive. We have honey, which is actually really good.
Like literally the best honey, but it takes like fucking 15 hours to get it out.
Yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. But if you need some good organic honey, like go to your local farmer's market and get some. It's totally,
so good.
Yeah, it's not
and
like
it's
anything
really
you
good
get in the
for
store.
You.
It is, yeah. You can help with allergies and all of that. But I don't know why I got into doing bees. I'm not sure I can't even remember where it started, but for whatever reason, someday
I feel like it's because you garden and you wanted your garden pollinated.
I think that's actually probably where it started from. I had a little garden and I was like, I bet it would do better if there were more bees here.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and if I had bees, I could have honey. And if I had honey, it would taste delicious.
And I could spend my weekends harvesting it.
Yes. I did not realize how long it takes to harvest honey, especially if you don't have all the equipment.
You traumatized your parents. They had to come help. It was bad.
So the first time I started harvesting honey, it was an accident because I was out doing something and tipped the beehive over.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
So I'm running around in the middle of the hot summer heat.
Which freaking St. George, Utah
it's hot.
Yeah,
it was probably like 1:15 outside.
Oh.
And there's like honey all over the ground, on the carpet, and
Through your house.
Through all my house. But I'm like, I can't let all this honey waste. And I ended up with probably like 8 quarts of honey that day.
I'm so grateful that was at your house before we moved in together.
Yeah. Honey is messy if you don't.
Just imagine it all over your house.
Just imagine having several gallons of honey like strewn all over and you're trying to catch it in buckets.
Oh my hell. He's like Pooh Bear, guys.
But
you're Pooh Bear.
I am Pooh Bear.
You're like a gardening, sexy, wood-wielding Pooh Bear.
Oh, bother.
And to like counteract his gardening and honeying, which I think is amazing and I find very endearing, he also can build anything out of wood.
It's true.
A lot of the hair love stuff he built.
I do. It's one of my hobbies. I like building stuff. One of my dreams one day is to have a wood shop in the backyard with all like the proper tools and stuff where I can make furniture and things like that. That would be
proper wood shop.
That's right. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is funny. So so our backyard is pretty big, and I was like, oh, we should have like a chick shed. Like, it would be so awesome. And I knew this lady who was going to make like a chick shed out of like a trailer and like make it really cute. And I was like, oh, that'd be so cool. And Maisie brought to our attention that our house is a chick shed, but also Derek was like, what? I could build you a house. I could build you a chick shed. He was like so adamant that he could build that with his hands. So he can make you honey and build you a house.
That's right.
He's very handy to have around. All right. So let's get into it. For those of you who do work with your spouse, you're probably going to be nodding your head and agreeing, and hopefully we can A, make you feel like you're totally normal, and B, if there's anything we've figured out that can help you, hopefully, you leave with some of that. And for someone who's in a position to decide if they want to work with their spouse, this will be a really interesting episode. I wish I could have listened to something like this. Ours has been kind of a gradual transition, but not totally. We still had to make some leaps of faith, and it's been hard and scary and amazing. And so, yeah.
It's been a process. We've learned a lot along the way, and there's been lots of changes and tweaks made, and I think we're in a good place now where we're at. Not that it's always easy, even now, we still have our difficult times, and it's not always all roses, but we're definitely in a good spot now where I feel like we're good most of the time, and we really enjoy it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I really love working together and being together and spending all that time together and growing together. So it's definitely worth it, but hopefully we can shed some light on if you're interested in that, or
it's just an interesting episode.
Yeah, or just learn about what it's like to work with your spouse.
Yeah, and it's definitely not for everyone, but let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons, and let's start with the cons.
All right, the cons are definitely spend a lot of time together, which can be a pro and a con. If you enjoy spending time together, and it's fun to be together a lot, but also no matter who you're with, if you spend a whole lot of time with that person, eventually there's a saturation point where you need some space and you need some time, and it can cause problems and arguments or whatever.
Yeah, and we literally spend almost freaking every waking moment together, which I actually love. I feel like we're one of those gross couples who loves being together all the time, which I love, and I really enjoy spending time with you. But definitely, multiple times a week, one of us needs space, and usually mine's in the bathtub, and someone walks in, and I'm listening to an Audible, get out. Like, and he's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, leave. Like, you just need, everyone needs alone time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. I think that for some couples, I mean, I would say most people, there might be a sense of someone feeling like they're leaving something behind, whether a piece of their identity or they're giving something up. I think if you are starting it together, it might be a little bit less like that. But where Derek, I didn't know him 10 years ago when I started doing hair, but he's jumping, into what we're creating. But the beauty is with a business is you're always building and creating. So it's not like what we have today will be what we have in 5 years. So you're still completely building new things together from the ground up.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I feel like it was kind of interesting for me anyway, because I kind of got to see a little bit of both of those things.
Yeah, you did.
Because you had been doing education for a couple years before I met you, in-person classes and traveling, all that. So you had already been building that up, and you had a big following, and you had a lot of experience in that regard. But since I met you, we've started Hair Love Retreat and the clubs and the online education and all of that. So I've got to see all of that start from nothing, from an idea, and build up. So it's been really interesting to kind of see both of those. So I feel like...
Yeah, that was brand new together.
Yeah, like the seed was planted with you, but we also, together, we have fertilized it, and this is going back to gardening.
He's like, put a bee by it.
The bee came and pollinated the flower.
Oh my God.
Now, but it's been really fun because I feel like I have some stake in the game too, and some of my ideas are put into it. So
Totally.
it's our baby as well.
Yeah.
So like she planted it, but it's our baby.
It was
now.
in my tummy, and I was pregnant with it, but he had to like help me make the baby and then care for it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm like giving a baby a birthing scenario, and you give bee scenarios. Oh my gosh.
And on the flip side of that too, but kind of going back to what you started with, that can be a thing. Like if you feel like you're giving up your identity to join in with your spouse,
Yeah.
or it's not your idea at all, like that could be a big sticking point. Like if that's something where you feel like you have to give up. And I felt like that a little bit at first, because
Yeah, I remember.
it was hard, because I came from like a tech background. Like I've done video for years, and which had nothing to do with hair really,
Yeah.
And the whole beauty industry was totally foreign to me. And so coming in and doing all that, like it did feel like I didn't, and because I was coming in as a newbie, and Elizabeth's personality that we kind of got into a little bit earlier is very strong, and she was like, no, this is how it has to be done, this is what has to go. That was kind of hard because I did feel like a fish out of water, and like I had no stake in the game or whatever. And so it was a growing process for me to kind of like get into that and
Yeah, it was
learn.
hard, actually. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And like we like talked about dipping our toes in together, and then we didn't. And there was a lot of like, so when we started dating, oh my gosh, we have to share how we met.
Yeah.
We do.
That's a good
Because
point.
it's really funny. Okay, just like quick backstory on Derek. So he worked for a tech company for a decade, went to school for graphic design, and he won't brag about himself, so I will. He managed their YouTube channel, grew it, made their videos, was the freaking talent in it, scripted them, edited them, like insane, and did graphics, like knew how to build out websites. Like he's such a gem in that way. And he was like underpaid and underappreciated. And me as the entrepreneur is like, babe, you need to start your own video business. Like, what the heck? Like, this is crazy. And he's like, no. And then the more we talked, he like eventually ended up starting Vander Studios. And then him and I pretty much just work together 99.9% of the time now. But anyways, but when we met on Tinder. You guys, we met on Tinder.
It works. Hey, sometimes you never know.
We swiped right. Oh my God. So I'm like a single mom. I have a 2-year-old. I'm traveling the freaking nation teaching classes, full-time behind the chair, owning a salon, just bought my first home. Like life was freaking crazy. And we met on Tinder, which, should I share the Tinder story? It's kind of funny.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So, and I actually want to hear your side of it. Like, okay, so I got on Tinder. So I was kind of hanging out with this guy. And then the girls at the salon were like, oh, he's on Bumble and Tinder. And I was hanging out with him like quite a bit. And I was like, what the heck? Like, why are you on Bumble and Tinder if we're hanging out like every night? So out of spite, I got back on Tinder. And there was just like a bunch of kind of weirdo guys. And then there was Derek. And Derek was like, oh, you look quirky. I like you. And I was like, oh, that's a different, like, that was nice, you know? And then he got my number to text me. And in the middle of all this, someone told me, like, what their pee smelled like. It was horrible.
Not me.
No, not Derek. It was just, I don't know, a Tinder nightmare. Anyway, so I got off, deleted the app, but Derek had my phone number. And he started texting me and asked me out to coffee. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. So I go out to coffee, just like afternoon coffee, nothing crazy, like perfect first Tinder date, I feel like. And we go out, and the second I get my coffee, I realize I have a freaking interview at the salon. I just opened the salon. I'm wearing too many hats per usual, and I have a babysitter for my son to go on this date, and I'm just like, shit, I forgot about this interview. So I'm like, I own a salon for like a second, and I have an interview there. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I have to go. And he's like, okay. And so we went together, and I interviewed this girl for, it was like 2 seconds. We never ended up hiring her. And he was like helping take out the trash. So first off, I was like, oh my gosh, he's kind, he's supportive, he's helpful. Like, he was a total man about it. Like, are you kidding me? And so then after, he's like, oh, are you hungry? And I'm like, yeah, I'm starving. So we go out and eat Indian food. And while we're sitting there, I'm getting all of these texts from my old assistant that's like, you have someone who wants a refund for your workshop, blah, 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 blah. And it was a class that hadn't even happened yet. And we were like only a couple years in. And so we've only ever had to do a few refunds with the painting classes. But some like person was really upset about something and their flight changed. I don't even remember the story. And so I'm like dealing with this over a date and like freaking out. And hindsight, like I would have just dealt with it Monday morning. But back then, like I was a workaholic and I'm in recovery now. Anyway, so I'm like, oh my God, freaking out. I'm in like the bathroom. Basically, he probably thought I had diarrhea because I kept going back.
She did frequent the bathroom a lot last night.
Night. And I'm like texting her and calling her, and I'm like, you handle it. Anyways, so that was kind of like, of course, that would happen to me on the first date with Derek. I feel like that was like, how could it start any other way? And then I was sure this cute guy would never ask me out again after how rude I was. And I was sad about that, but I was like, freak, I screwed it up. And he asked me out again. And not only did he ask me out again, he showed up with freaking lavender that he grew in his garden as a bouquet that he tied with twine, you guys. I have to share that story because it's so precious.
I do love lavender.
I do love lavender. So, yeah. What's your side of that?
Yeah, mine is much less dramatic. It was more just, just kind of a typical story. Like, so I just would, I guess, I don't think I'd been on Tinder a lot. Especially in St. George, it's a very small
It's bad pickings.
town. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of people there. I don't know what the girl side is like, but so there wouldn't be. I didn't go on like a whole lot of dates. Maybe like 2 or 3 other ones. Mm-hmm. But I just scrolled across, and she had some like fun pictures on there. They weren't all just like, she wasn't trying to be sexy or whatever. I could tell she traveled a little because she looked like she was in New York or somewhere in one of them, and then in a couple of them she was just kind of being silly, which I liked. Like, I'm like, I don't want someone who's just serious all the time or just trying to be too cool for school. Like, I liked that she was being quirky and fun. So that's what I said in the first comment. And then we went out, and from my side of the date, we went out. The coffee was good. And like, I understand things come up, and I didn't feel like she was being rude at all. You know, like I could tell she was like being honest in her frustration with the situation. Like, she totally did. Looking back now, like I can totally see how this happened, how she's got too many balls in the air and just totally forgot that she had an interview that day and all that. But I was like, yeah, things come up, like I get it, you know. And before the whole coffee situation with the text and the girl needing to be interviewed, the conversation had been really good, and she hadn't been ignoring me on her phone, which I'd been on dates before. When that's super annoying, when you're like sitting on the date and the whole time the person's just like keeps looking at her phone and like, well, are you not interested in being here? Like, you don't have to be here, you know. So I felt like we had a good connection there, and we had talked a lot. And then when we went to the salon, I was like, well, I don't want to just sit here and be awkward while she's talking to this person, so I might as well do something. So that's why I was like, well, I could see the trash can is full. I'm like, okay, where's the dumpster? I'll throw this away, you know, just to make myself useful. And at the same time, I wanted to come off. I was like, okay, I'm a good guy. I'm a helpful guy.
Yeah. And he still takes out the trash.
I still take out the trash.
And that was our love story.
Yeah, no, it was
We've literally been together ever since, though.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't think I've ever spent this much time with anybody, actually. Like,
yeah.
It's because we work together, we stay together, we have fun together, we
fight together.
We're like almost always together, other than like when we're in the bathroom or showering or something.
Which even then sometimes. But anyways, yeah, so that's how we met, which I think is kind of funny. Okay, let's talk about some of the pros of working together. So I would say it adds a lot of layers to your relationship. And a really good episode to listen to is Mixing Business and Pleasure with Lo Wheeler. She talks about her experience of owning a salon with her husband, who's not a hairstylist, but she is, which is an interesting episode. Mm-hmm. But she talks about the layers and how when you work together with someone, you can't control it. Like, you're so entwined in so many parts, but with that can be, really hard, of course, but can also add a lot of positive talking points and understanding and growth that's really cool as a couple to experience.
Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest pros, I think, to working together is that you are growing together and you experience all these things together, and you can really understand each other on that level, which is very, very, I don't know, I feel like it's a huge pro because you're growing together and seeing, like, no matter what it is, if you're doing one thing and your spouse is doing another, it's hard to totally relate to what they're doing. And it could be the same thing with them. They go to, like, I don't know, I'm going to just say some corporate business thing, but they get like a big business deal and they're super stoked about it. They can come home and they can be like, oh, I'm so excited. And you can be totally happy and like you support them and everything, but you don't quite get like what that's like. So working together,
you kind of see things through the other person's eyes instead of like hearsay.
Yeah.
And I would say that's a pro.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously not everyone can work together. Everyone doesn't want to work together, but that is...
Not everybody should work together.
Yeah, no. That's a huge pro. And I say, like, with that, we've grown so much as a couple that I would really encourage you, if you're in a relationship with a significant other, that you don't work together, which is probably most of you listening, is to truly take your spouse on the journey as much as possible. Like, cry with them when you're stressed out. Celebrate them, celebrate with them when something good happens. When you have a bad day, like, tell them the stories. Introduce them to the people that are in your life. If they can't be introduced, like, show them pictures of them online. Like, I really think the more that they are living the life that you live with you, that's super beneficial to take the time to tell those stories to your spouse so they understand. And yeah. Yeah,
and also with that, like, let them be involved with you. Like, they might not be a hairdresser, but they might have some input on something like, so-and-so has this problem, or, I feel like the more they are connected, involved with you, that's going to lead to that connection.
Yeah, so you don't feel like you're on your own island.
Yeah, and same with them, get it, because it's not a one-way street. Like, you want to feel connected with them too, so talk to them about their business problems, issues at work, because you might have some sort of weird little bit of insight that you never knew would translate over into their business. So I think just that's really important, is because you can still have that same sort of connection whether you work together or
Totally.
not. It's all just a part of being connected and communicating and being really being invested in each other's lives.
Yeah, like go to their work parties. Like, I think all of that's more important than we give credit for. And I think when someone does go to like a Christmas work party with you or something, think about it. Kind of makes you feel good. Like you're proud of your woman or man that you're with. Like, oh, this is my person, and the people I like work hard with get to meet them, and vice versa. Like there really is a sense of pride. And I think you kind of feel like worlds collide, don't you think? And you're like, oh, like my two worlds are here together. Like this is a really cool moment. And so I think like that goes a long way. If you have a husband or wife, like show up for them and they will start showing up for you. And I think when they see you caring about their work, they're going to listen a lot more. When you're like, oh, this bitch who I did a color correction on or whatever, like I had a horrible day or, And so I think that's a great way to start that and really, really, really crucial.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. I think that's super important.
Yeah. So I wrote down some things that I think are our top 5 things that we've kind of learned as a couple. And so number 1 is meet in the middle and set rules.
Oh yeah, rules are definitely important. The more you can set up boundaries and rules, that's going to help so much especially in the initial, because it's so easy to get sucked into you're like always working kind of mentality. You're always together. There's no blur. So like setting up rules, whether and that can be different for every couple and every situation, but like setting up maybe work hours, or because at least for me, I think Elizabeth's a little bit different with this, but like having some definite like, okay, after this hour, like it's us time. It's like our, because there's always family stuff you have to do. There's like chores at home there, and people just need downtime as well. So having some time when you're like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done for the day. We need to stop.
Yeah. And that can be project-based, hour-based. It can be
whatever
depending
works.
what season of life you're in. Like for us, it would never work to be like, we're done at 5. Like maybe karate, we take our kid to at 3:30, and maybe we have a big project due. Like I think one of the joys is working together is flexibility, but you just communicate and have expectations. And so it's kind of that like meet in the middle, like, hey, what do you need to get done? What do I need to get done? How can we help each other? And just like sticking to your word kind of builds that trust that the other person is like can believe you when you say you're going to be done or whatever that may be.
Yeah, totally different on whatever scenario you're in. But actually, that's probably the number one thing would be communication.
Yeah.
And
like every day.
Yeah.
Like we started setting, like we're like calendaring with our team and everything. So we have our office team and our salon team. So I'm referring to our office team and like making like everyone's schedules, whether it be like blog posts released or events or whatever. But him and I have to make like a couple's expectation in calendaring. And for us, it works really well to do it just the week of, because we travel a lot for work. Things change as far as our son. And so we'll talk about it. And even the night before, like to avoid a fight, it'll work to be like, okay, I'm going to let you sleep in. I'm going to wake up when Strider gets up. I'm going to take him to preschool and do breakfast. Then when I come back, like maybe he'll have coffee ready and like be working on a project. So just like setting those expectations and like touching back in on base, because that's when our fights happen. Is when I'm expecting him to do something that I maybe didn't communicate at all or clearly. But in my head, I'm like, why is he doing this? Because it's sort of this balance of like everyone pulling their own weight, because you're raising a family together, you're raising a business together. And so it's a lot of things. And so if you feel overburdened, it's not just like regular, like, oh, he's at work and I'm home, I feel like I clean too much, I'm gonna nag him when he gets home. It's like everything. So it's so much bigger. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're much more honest with your with your spouse or partner than you would be with any other normal employee
Or business partner.
or business
yeah.
partner or a
Yeah.
coworker. So it's much easier to get into fights about things or like where you're expecting something. Whereas if it was a business partner, you would just be like, oh, why didn't they do that? And you probably would never say anything to them or whatever.
Yeah. Well, which leads me to point number 2. You still have to be in a relationship. So for me, I'm like girl boss with big fat girl balls. And like, I get into like a really business mode. Like, I'm extremely passionate. You guys know that if you listen to the podcast. And like, I want things to be a certain way. I want there to be so much magic. Like, I eat, sleep, and breathe what I do. And so I kind of turn into girl boss mode when it's time to work. And then I switch back into like, silly, goofy mom mode when it's time to do that. And I have learned that with my partner, and don't get me wrong, like we have fun in our office. I'm not like walking around in a suit yelling at people. It's not like that at all. But anyways, but like I'm like getting shit done and like working. And when you're dating the person that you're doing business with, you're still dating them. I've tried to fight this concept. Like, when 9 o'clock hits, we are no longer dating. We are working on business. And maybe for some people that works. For us, like, we're really, there's a lot of emotions between the two of us. Derek is a Pisces, so, and I'm a Gemini.
I can be touchy.
Yeah, and so he gets his feelings hurt, and I'm, like, very much, in work mode. And so for us, like, we just had to learn, like, especially for me, that I'm still dating Derek, even though we're filming a video or working on a project. Like, he's still my lover. And so I need to speak to him not how I would speak to an employee, but how I would speak to not a business partner, but my boyfriend. And so there's a lot more pleases and thank yous. There's a lot more, just like how you speak to your spouse. Like, if you're kinder and sweeter to them, you guys are usually doing better. And that carried into business, I think it just works better. So I've tried to fight it, but I think it's a hard cultural for us. Like, I'm still dating you even when we're filming.
Yeah.
And if I'm sweet, then, like, we have so much more fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that it kind of jumps back to that last one too, was communication, because this was a long thing coming where.
Oh yeah.
Because it was hard for me to try and do that too, because I'm like, okay, I'm being too sensitive. Like, she said this, and for her, like, she wasn't meaning it to be rude or anything. She was just being short. She had a lot on her mind. She was doing this and that. But for me, I'm like, well, I'm dating you. Is she mad at me about something else that had nothing to do with work? And so it's just
the lines are too blurred.
Yeah.
You just have to like. Yeah, and it might work better for other people, but for us, it was just like, we're always dating.
Yeah. It just took some time to figure that out. Yeah.
And honestly, for me to like come to that conclusion and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is where therapy is really great. Yeah, that's like a 2.5. Go to therapy. If you work together, I feel like you have to. I mean, I think everyone needs therapy, but.
Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going and talking to somebody and getting, because there's so much good that's come out of it, both individually for us and together as a couple.
Yeah. So number 3, it's not always easy, and that's totally okay.
Yes, that is definitely true. There's growing. Growing hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt.
Growing is tough, and you never know where you're gonna go. Which direction it's going to head, but it's definitely been, at least in our case, it's been definitely worth it, and I think in a lot of people's cases it could be.
So I think one of the bigger lessons has been, like, it's not easy, and coming to the conclusion of the second part that that's totally okay, and it doesn't mean that, like, working together was a bad idea, or we're failures, or we're not good enough as a couple to do this. Like, it has nothing to do with that. And if you're a couple who you're just like, hell no, we could never work together, that doesn't make you bad or good either. It's just like understanding what makes each other happy. And that's all life is really about. And so for us, just like being okay, like sometimes work is hard. And I mean, the events we put on are really extra, and they're a lot of work, and we're a small team, and it's hard. Like sometimes like we're like, holy shit, guys, this is a big project and it's not easy. And just being like, it's okay. Like, we know our why and this is going to be amazing and we're all in and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, and I feel like we really complement each other well too, which is something that can come from a relationship like this where you're working together. Is some of her weeks are my strengths and my weeks are her strengths, so we like make a better team together than we would separate. We can.
And I think most people who come together, like, I feel like everyone's dated someone that was like really maybe they like loved or were really attracted to certain parts of their personality, and then they date and they're like, oh my gosh, this is a living nightmare. Like, me and this person should not be together. And I would say most people who end up in a solid relationship have really big like yin and yangs. That's very common. And I think in business, you just have to realize like those strengths can really be maximized and help each other. It's same with raising kids or, just being in a loving relationship. But I mean, take that to the nth fold when you're running a company.
They can definitely be exacerbated and made so much more heightened and.
Yeah. And that can be good and bad. But I think it's good to, I would say this with any good hires, like, you want to find your team's strengths and what they enjoy doing and let them run with that. And that's what you kind of have to do in a relationship. And what's good about that, though, is you know that person. Like, you really know, like, Derek's OCD. And so he's the best person to organize our Dropbox.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's actually a story. I have to learn to give up control. The other day, he's like, woman, let me do the Dropbox. And I'm like, okay.
Not always easy.
Not always easy. That's okay.
We're still learning.
Yeah. Well, and you're human. And there's days that like I'm PMSing or he's like cranky or you're sick or your kid's homesick. Like, that's where I think working together gets really good and bad, is like you do have the flexibility to be like, all right, Strider's homesick or the dogs are sick or, someone in our family has got something going on. Like, we're able to work around it. But also, that's also what makes it crazy, is because you're like, shit, we have a project due and the kid's puking and blah, 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 blah. Like, all hands on deck. Let's do this. So it's crazy, but it's good. Okay, number 4 is this one. I feel like my team already knew, but they taught me, is you're stronger together. So
yeah.
If you guys look back, I have always been a hard worker. If you're someone who's followed me a long time, I've always been really passionate about creating like innovative concepts for education. I've been, I like to think big. I like to dream big. I like to have friends who feel the same. But I have had a lot of failures as far as like, my first 2 times trying to do an e-course and trying to do different events. Like, I've had to figure this out even like before my salon, my studio salon. And if you look back, when me and Derek started being together, having someone love me and believe in me changed my business, and I didn't even realize it. Like, we've talked about this. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. And I'd been like a single mom. I was alone in my marriage before, and having someone be like, yeah, you can do it. Like, that's amazing. Before we even knew we worked together, that like really pushed me to go after my dreams. And I think that's something that's really important to do for your spouse, whether it's like you're the dreamer or they're the dreamer or both of you, but is to just really allow them to spread their wings and like fulfill their purpose in life. And Derek did that for me. I'm gonna cry. But like, I didn't even realize it till I look back. I was like, look what I was able to accomplish because someone loved me, right? And that's so telling of like our self-care and our personal lives, and all of that really, really is so important, and it really allows you to be your best self. And then on top of that, obviously him coming in and helping me, run the company and produce content, like, was just a whole nother level of things we could offer our tribe. But I think it started with that simple thing of like really being there for someone and like letting them reach for the stars. So I think like you're so much stronger together, whether it be your husband can make videos for you or he can just love you, right? Like that's the best gift your spouse can give you is just loving you and supporting you, because you can accomplish so much. So even if you don't work with your spouse, it's totally fine. It's the other part that's like, don't you think? That's
Yeah. Absolutely. Aw.
Sorry, guys.
No. Isn't she sweet?
This is like going to be the grossest episode. People are like, oh my gosh, you two. Get a room.
That is a really good point, though, because that's whether you work together or not, you can still be that person for your spouse.
Exactly.
And it just gets more heightened in that, because from my perspective, it was really empowering and enlightening for me to see someone so passionate about all these things. And even though like I had no interest in hair or anything like that, to see her and see how passionate she was about that, and she had these big dreams, and she has definitely got some big girl balls. Like she's risky. She'll just take it and run with it. And that's something that I struggle with, is like having that gumption to just jump in and go for it. So I was like, that's scary for me, but I can help her do that. I can be the support behind her and push her up. And then on top of that, our skill sets really helped out. And I could.
But that came later.
Yeah, that
and
came later.
That proves that like the first part is like something we can all do for people.
Yeah. And it was just, and it didn't have to be a his or her kind of thing. I could just be happy that she was doing something that she was very happy and passionate about, and I could help uplift her. And that in turn uplifted me and made me feel like a bigger person and made us grow together, which was amazing.
Yeah, Derek's the real MVP. I love that. Okay. Now that I'm like wiping all the tears off my freaking face. So, number 5, this was Derek's, have outside interest, and I'm going to add on there, and be lighthearted. So having outside interest when you work together and being lighthearted while you work, like whistling while you work.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
So I think that's just important to have outside interests, whatever that might be, because I feel like for a lot of people, work can almost be like an outside interest. Like you need alone time or personal time or time apart, regardless of what you do, whether you work together or not. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can be as easy as just going to work and, chatting with the boys at work or the girls at work. Or I know I have coworkers that like on lunch breaks, they'll go play pickleball together and things like that. So even though they're not like going and having like a guys' night every night, like they get that little bit of social activity and different things that they enjoy to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important to have that in a relationship when you are working together as well. Like have some friends, go out, do a girls' night, go out, do a guys' night.
Yeah, and that could be as a couple or separate. I think that's just whatever you guys need.
Yeah, and it can work. Like Elizabeth and I actually like are best friends as well, so we love just being together too. But every once in a while, I'll go out to a movie with my brother, or she'll go get a massage, or she'll go have a ladies' night, or do something with her sister. I think it's just important to have that separation, because otherwise it can get a little stagnant. And if you start feeling stuck, that's really important to have that. Mm-hmm. Outside interest, and you want to feel like your own person too. Yeah,
for sure. And it's easy to let all the things going on consume everything, and it's just so easy to do. And we just started, everyone, this is a Get Happy, Get Snappy.
Get happy. Get snappy. Get happy.
Get happy.
Get snappy.
We hired a nanny.
Get snappy.
That's been so funny.
Get happy.
So this is something I've been really nervous to do, and it's not cheap. So that was part of it. The other part of it was just like trusting someone to be in our home. And I mean, we have a at-home office. We recently got a not at-home office, which is also life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had like a lot of big jumps in that way, which obviously that comes with time. I mean, we couldn't have had a not at home office any sooner. We couldn't afford a nanny any sooner. And some things did happen in our life to kind of force us to do that. So it was a little bit sooner than we planned on, but it's going to be a great thing. Anyway, so yeah, getting a nanny and making us have date nights, which we could have just got a babysitter and did this, but I've been working through mom guilt always. I feel like it's something I always work through. And I think a date night's been really good.
It's been really good. And it's just because it is that same person and we trust her, it's made it easier than getting and we can schedule it, like, whereas if it was a babysitter, it just made it a little bit harder. But just having that.
But we could have done it.
We could have done it.
We just didn't make it a thing.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I don't know.
So get a babysitter. Like, you don't even need a nanny, but go on a date night and schedule the babysitter.
Yeah.
I think
we
were always
weekly
like,
or bi-weekly or whatever it is. But that it has been really life-changing for us because it has allowed us to have a little alone time that's not work, that's not doing kids.
Yeah.
Where we can just put away the phone for a minute and just have some dinner or go bowling or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever we want to do and just enjoy each other's company as a couple.
Yeah. Well, and you can even, I mean, depending on your children, but like sometimes we'll put our son down earlier, like don't let him nap that day or whatever, and you kind of wear him out, take him to the park, and then you kind of have like a self-proclaimed date night where like you just put him to bed early, and let's be honest, sometimes being home is the best date night when the house is quiet and clean and you can just watch a show or talk or drink wine. So I think like making that a priority, we've gone in and out of doing that, but just with our schedules, we like have struggled to make it a priority, but I think that's been a great thing we've done this year in 2019.
Yeah, and just as of late, we have kind of made it a priority to do it on a weekly basis, which I think is good because it's so easy to just push it off and be like, oh, well, we'll just do it next week. But having it scheduled ahead of time and thinking about it has been really amazing because it kind of forces you, even sometimes even on that day, you're like, I don't really want it. We don't have time. I don't want to, but we do it anyway. And then you're like, I'm so glad we did.
Yeah, no, that is true. Because there has been times that we're like, I'm just tired, but we already told the nanny, and she's planning. But then we get out, and it's always needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's do whistle while you work. So this is like 5.5. We have so many. We're like, it's 5 things, but actually it's like 12. So I think that goes back to like, enjoying your work, and especially a lot of hairstylists listen to this podcast. It's, when you're doing someone's hair you really enjoy, or you can share a glass of wine with them or share jokes or stories. It really is fun. And I think where we've been in like an office setting more so than I ever have in my life, obviously, I've been a hairdresser my whole life. And with your spouse, like I think it's important to be playful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It just makes everything so much. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, your life it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is work.
Yeah.
So why not make it fun and then just enjoy it? Like, it's going to be stressful. It's going to be hard at times, but take a step back, take a deep breath, enjoy the people around you, enjoy what you're doing, and have fun.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's something that we share in our coaching program is the whole, this is something Elizabeth does, me, I'm talking in third person. So I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just no time in the day. There's just so many things to do. I'm not having fun anymore. Like, this is like a common dialogue that my brain will go into. And I'll ask myself, is that true? I'm like, well, I mean, there was 9 hours of work. That's a lot. I don't know. I have a little bit of fun, I guess. And then I'm like, am I sure that's true? Am I positive that's true? I'm like, okay, fine. I just need to manage my time better and have more fun. You're right, Elizabeth. You're right. And then you ask yourself, how would I feel if I knew that this story I was telling myself wasn't true? I'm like, well, I would have so much more fun, and I would know that there's enough time to get everything done, and it's okay to have a soda run or listen to, girls' music while we're, working on our computers, or have a dance break. Like, I would feel so much more lighthearted. And then the last question is, how would this change your life if you lived like this? And so then it's just like, okay, oh my gosh, these blog posts are not that stressful. Like these ticket sales are not the end of the world. They will get sold. And so I think that is just like it minimizes things to be like, okay, they're just ticket sales. It's just a blog post. It's just a podcast episode. It's just restocking product at the salon. It's just a fucking highlight. Like, take a chill pill. Have some fun, you know? And then you're like, oh, okay, like, we're not surgeons, guys. Like, anyone listening is probably a creative entrepreneur. Like, we're changing lives. We're not saving lives, though. So have some fun. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that was a lot of information. We hope you guys learned something and had fun hanging out. And I'm so glad we were able to finally have you get to know Derek more.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed being here, and maybe, hopefully, she'll have me on again.
Maybe. No.
We'll see if I'm lucky.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. And as always,
We here love you.
Hair, love, radio.